When I was 5, my birth parents abandoned me. Years later, my birth mom found me working as a top attorney at a prestigious law firm. "Becky, I finally found you," she said. I could have charged her with abandonment. When I was 5, my mom got pregnant. They consulted a fortune teller and found out it was a boy. My dad called me over and sweetly said, "Becky, let's go buy candy." I innocently thought that if they had a little brother, they'd be happy. Dad took me over the long hills, and the cold wind blurred my vision. I wondered why the store was so far away. We walked for what seemed forever. He told me not to move and said he'll be back soon. I waited and waited. As the sun was setting, fear crept in. Wild dogs howled on the hill, the wind howled, and it enveloped me with dread. I ran back, but I had no clue how to find my way home. In the distance, I saw a shadow. I thought it was a wild dog catching up. I cried loudly. The shadow approached slowly. It was a woman. She looked at me with a vacant stare, pulled a handful of fruit from her pocket, and handed it to me. Terrified and hungry, I hesitated to take it. She stuffed it into my hand and clumsily led me away. At her home, a man smoked a pipe, watching us with cold eyes. She was wild, I was a mess. It was both sad and funny standing together. "Where do you dig up a kid?" he asked. She pointed to the hills. "L'immensight. Let her eat something. Don't let her starve." And so, I was taken in by them. The villagers started to talk. "John's got a crazy wife and brought back a girl. What a mess they've made. Why not have a kid of their own?" But John's wife was too scared to have kids. "What if it turns out to be another fool?" They'd whisper. "John's smart, raising her now and earning a dowry later." The man told me to call them Mom and Dad. Dad said that if my birth parents showed up, at least it wouldn't be awkward hearing me call them Mom and Dad. No one came looking after a month, and I realized my birth parents had completely abandoned me. They say that the firstborn is loved, the youngest is spoiled, and the middle child gets mistreated. Unfortunately, that was me, the one in the middle. I thought if I was obedient and didn't cause trouble, they might love me a bit. But I was wrong. Dad barely spoke. He was always busy, and some days, we'd go without exchanging a word. In spring, he would help plow. With reins on his back and a plow in the dirt, he carved furrows relentlessly. I watched him work like a tireless ox. In fall, he helped harvest, carrying bags of grain and corn, earning 50 cents a sack. He'd haul hundreds of sacks a day, his face red from exertion. If the client underpaid him by a few cents, he'd accept it without complaint. Back then, I didn't understand what it meant to keep quiet in adversity. I just thought he had great patience. I had chores too, like feeding chickens, gathering firewood, peeling corn, cooking, and doing laundry. Dad's clothes were all mud-stained. Wet, they were so heavy I struggled to lift them. The winter river water was freezing, and I had countless chilblains on my hands. Mom wandered aimlessly, but returned on her good days. One time, I searched all over and found her drooling on a grass stack, her face purplish from cold. I grabbed her hand and ran us back home. "Mom, please, I've been looking for you all afternoon. Run off again, and I'll have Dad lock you up." The pot had sweet potatoes boiling, and I was worried, my voice loud from urgency. Startled, Mom shakily handed me some crumpled fruits. "For you, Becky likes these." Eyes wet, I realized there were no fruits in winter, just leftovers dried up on trees. From then on, I took Mom along. She'd watch while I worked, and sometimes I'd show her a task. She'd try but make a mess, which somehow made me happy. One day I ran into my birth parents. My birth mom was on a bike holding a bundled-up baby. My birth dad was pedaling. I shouted, "Dad, Mom." They looked back, flustered. "Whose brat is yelling?" I ran to the bike, still hoping they came back for me since they had a brother. My birth dad pushed me down. "You've got the wrong people." Just then Dad returned from work. He had seen enough to understand. "Becky, let's go home." I followed him, looking back at every step. Later I heard they had a son, and their joy was endless. My older sister had to quit school after elementary and worked in a garment factory. She was so tiny, but her earnings went straight to milk powder for him. That day they were at the town for his treatment. He was sick. I remembered last winter when I was nearly 104 degrees with fever, and my birth mom didn't even give me a sip of water. She threw me into the snow outside. I was barely able to walk, my eyelids heavy. Snow and wind swallowed my weak cries. The cold hit me, and I screamed, begging Mom, "I'm cold, please save me." Lips quivering, she murmured, so noisy, so noisy. "You're just feverish, let it burn. You're worthless anyway." I forced a bitter smile. Not being loved was clear all along. It just took me too long to understand. At dinner, Dad quickly devoured his bowl of rice, having worked hard all day. Mom, not totally mad, grabbed his bowl for seconds when he finished. I carried water from the well, filling a big vat for our daily use. Unable to balance 2 full buckets on a pole, I filled it 1 bucket at a time, needing 10 trips to fill it completely. Dad called me over, and Becky came along. "Can you stick with us from now on?" At the time, I didn't really get it. I'd been living with my parents for so long, so why was Dad asking me that? It wasn't until I got older that I realized Dad was giving me a choice and showing me respect. I thought about it, and figured my parents were good people. Nodded, a bit clueless. "You won't go hungry." Dad happily slurped another mouthful of rice. "You should start school soon. You're already 7 this year." I talked to the village officials, and they said you need a name to enroll. "Becky, think about it, give yourself a name." Yeah, I didn't have a proper name then. And I never thought my parents would let me go to school. Even my eldest sister only graduated from elementary school. And girls my age in the village were collecting pigweed and firewood. Schooling was only useful for boys. "Dad, you name me." Dad was silent for a while, looking at the round moon, and then said, "How about Carrie?" And just like that, I had a name, Carrie. That fall, I started 1st grade. Without any preschool, learning was really hard for me. I ran into my second sister at school. At first, she was scared I'd cling to her and didn't dare greet me. Later, seeing I didn't bother her, she'd deliberately come and annoy me. "Mom and Dad didn't want you because you're too stupid. You can't even do math within 10. And following that silly mom of yours, you've become a fool too." She spat at me and threw bugs. I wasn't scared, just glared at her with cold eyes. "Your mom and dad are real nice, huh? Let's see if your good parents will sell you for dowry money once you graduate. You're just your brother's dog." She was stunned. I knew my second sister too well, knowing where it hurt the most. Since we were kids, she had been smarter. The eldest sister was steadier, leaving me the odd one out, overlooked by them. After school each day, I'd take a stick or stone, drawing and writing on the ground, going over what the teacher taught. I didn't have anyone to talk to, so I'd pull Mom over to watch. "Mom, this is sky, earth, and person. These are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division." Mom would smile foolishly beside me, saying, "It's Carrie, it's Carrie." Yep, Mom didn't recognize anything, but she knew my name. Before leaving for school, I'd remind Mom every day, "Don't run off, clean the house. I've already chopped the veggies for the chickens. After breakfast, just pour it for them. The rice is washed, cook it when Dad's almost home, and I'll do the stir-frying when I get back from school." Mom quietly listened, nodding or shaking her head occasionally. I didn't know if she understood, but she really never tried to run away again. Something big happened at home. Mom got pregnant. Dad was so happy that he unusually killed a chicken, giving both Mom and me a drumstick each. But I felt uneasy. I'd heard the neighbors gossip. "Becky, when your mom has a little brother, they won't need you anymore. Or maybe not. They say craziness is hereditary. Might need Becky to take care of a little fool." Hey, how can a Becky marry out and handle funerals? Even a silly boy is better than Becky. Look at your dad, working hard like a skinny monkey. He can't support you all. Some bachelors even chimed in, "Becky, come with me, and I'll feed you well." I ran home as fast as I could. Truthfully, I was more worried about the baby being like Mom, slow, eating with unease, looking at the drumstick in my bowl. I had no appetite, while Mom ate away, oil smearing her face. "Why aren't you eating?" Dad asked. I didn't dare eat. Both scared and sulking, I ran into the house, bringing out a bunch of paper money. "Dad, Mom, if you have a little brother, can you not send me away? I can quit school, I can earn money too." I heard from classmates that wild jujubes are worth a lot in the city, used in medicine. On weekends, I'd go picking them, but since the trees have thorns, I'd end up pricking my hands. Half a day's work would barely fill half a basket. I'd carry it to the town pharmacy to sell. 20 cents a pound, I saved a few bucks. Dad paused as if something clicked. With a serious tone he assured me, Carrie, don't listen to people's nonsense. Having a brother or sister doesn't mean we'll abandon you. In our family we respect elders. You were here first. Like buying tickets, there's a queue for who comes first. Later on, I used this line to teach my own kids about respect among siblings, not about boys being better than girls. And don't say you're not going to school anymore. The only thing truly yours is what you learn. Mom noticed the cuts on my hands. She picked up my hands and blew on them. Our family laughed together. It was later that I found out that Mom's condition wasn't congenital. She'd fallen from a 3-meter scaffold while working with Dad building houses, hitting her head. The homeowners paid $2,000 in compensation. My uncle came furious with Dad. He scolded him for a good hour, but didn't mention treating Mom at all. All Dad could say was, "It's my fault, I'll get her treated." Uncle took the $2,000 and let Mom, still bleeding, back home. Dad was reluctant, thinking her own brother wouldn't ignore her. But their conscience was non-existent. Uncle lived it up, drinking and gambling, while my aunt despised Mom, hitting and scolding her often. The money ran out, and Mom's condition remained untreated. 2 years later, Mom returned even more unstable. To this day, Dad regrets not being firm. If he had been, Mom might not have ended up like this. After that, Dad wouldn't let me pick jujubes anymore. I pushed myself to read all the books, asking if I didn't understand. From being clueless about math, to ranking among the top in class as I advanced. The younger brother from my biological family had turned 1. I don't know where they got the idea, but they decided to have a grand first birthday celebration like royalty. They filled the room with calligraphy supplies, abacuses, stamps, and more. The family laughed as they shoved things into his hands. He was chubby with a big head and a short body. He didn't take anything, but he kept his eyes fixed on the bowl of braised pork that my second sister was holding. She always spoiled him, so she came over with a smile. But he grabbed it, spilling it on his leg, and causing some serious burns. My second sister got a beating from her parents. You see, parents with favorites will always protect their precious son. When I saw my second sister at school, the bruises on her face hadn't faded yet. She avoided me. In a small town you can't hide anything. Folks from nearby villages knew I was abandoned by my birth parents. People would ask about my birth mother. Why did you abandon Becky? Look at her now, she's so capable. She's such a help in someone else's house. Even her mom taught her to read a few characters. My birth mom would spit. It wasn't me who abandoned her. That girl had big ambitions and ran away. Just another thankless pup, looking for greener pastures. Just look. Selfish people never feel ashamed. They blame their wrongdoings on others. Time in the fields flew by quickly. Soon I was about to graduate elementary school. Mom had a baby brother. She didn't take good care of him. He'd always get bruised or cry from hunger. He wore my old clothes patched up over and over, looking ridiculous in colorful trousers. When I went to school, Dad locked the house to keep them from wandering off. Every day after school, I'd see his little face peeking through the door crack. He'd cling to me and call out softly, "Sister, are you back?" I'd hold my brother, teaching him numbers and poems. Mom busied herself in the kitchen. Mentally she was much better, and she managed the housework just fine. But Dad still wouldn't let her out, saying she couldn't handle socializing. As I entered junior high, my schedule got hectic. The teacher, a young guy doing rural teaching for 5 years, would often tell me, "Carrie, you have to keep studying to get out of here." I knew the rural education was lacking, but I didn't want to be trapped here forever. Out there is where the world really is. I realized that if I didn't get into high school, even with Dad's favoritism, my fate would probably mirror my second sister's. I didn't want that life. My second sister didn't finish junior high. Heard she went south where wages are higher, working long hours on assembly lines. Her birth mother even arranged a marriage with a $10,000 dowry, but the guy had one blind eye. She packed a few clothes and fled through the window at night. But she was only 15. I started to study hard, compiling questions for the teacher. Classmates stuffed bugs into my desk, vandalizing my books, mocking me. She thinks she can get into high school? Dream on. My parents said if I don't make it, I can just work. I can earn $1,000 a month. Hilarious. I bet her dad doesn't even make that much in a year. In the crow's world, the swan is inherently wrong. 10. My brother Mike was in elementary school now, 1 grade behind my birth mother's son. He always waited for me at the school gate, so we could walk home together. From afar, I often saw him doing homework on the stone steps, counting on his fingers when he couldn't figure out a problem. I'd call him, and he'd race towards me like a joyful little monkey. But for days, he found excuses not to wait for me. I sensed something was off. During the last self-study period, I snuck out. I saw Mike surrounded by a group of boys. They were pulling at his clothes, making him act like a dog. Then they pulled down his pants and urinated on him. Finally, they made him stand against a wall as a human target, throwing cheap darts at him. The wall couldn't catch the darts, so they pierced his skin instead. My birth mother's little treasure clapped along. Mike was always smaller than other kids. Mom's lack of care made him even shorter and skinnier. At that moment he was helpless and desperate. They aimed a dart at his eye. My heart was in my throat. I grabbed a stick and charged at them. The stick landed on them, and they screamed in pain. 11. I'm telling my mom. You're crazy. I grabbed the collar of my birth mother's son, smacking him left and right. I'll tear your mouth off if you dare. And as for you all, if you touch Mike again, I'll beat you every time. Tom's kid tried to run. I tripped him, and he fell face first. I sat on him, pinning his arms. Mike jabbed him with the dart. Mike mustered up his courage and drove the dart into his hand. When my birth mother showed up, it was chaos. She saw her son and charged at me furious. Carrie, don't forget whose womb you came from. No matter what, you're my daughter. Aren't you ashamed to side with others over your own brother? I don't know where I found the strength, but I fought her off, picking up a brick to bash her head. Say it again, he's not my brother. If you scream again, I'll finish you too. Yeah, I'm crazy like Mom. When I lose it, killing you won't be a crime. Maybe my last words scared her. She backed off, dragging her son away. The rest scattered like cockroaches. The cold wind brought the sweat on my back to attention. Mike finally started to cry. I held his hand and walked home. Mike, remember, if anyone bullies you again, stand up for yourself. Sis, your neck is bleeding. My birth mom scratched my neck, and blood was dripping. I didn't bother treating the wound, and continued talking to Mike. Got it? Only when you're strong can you keep bullies at bay, and protect the ones you love. Mike nodded firmly. Both Mike and I kept this from our parents. Dad's already working so hard, I can't add to his worries. Dad doesn't farm for others anymore. Many people left for work elsewhere, so there's not as much land to farm as before. Dad found a job in a factory loading stones. He loads huge rocks from the quarry onto a trailer and hauls them to the crusher. He carries thousands of pounds daily. Dad's happiest when it's payday. He hands me the work log. Carrie, help Dad with the numbers. His handwriting's all crooked, and the thin paper is damp with sweat and then dried. The dense writing twists my heart. After my last outburst, the foreman no longer shortchanges him. Why do you short Dad's pay? I calculated it's supposed to be $523. Give us those $3 back, or I'll shout at your door every day. See who dares to work for you. Dad says nothing, but his eyes are moist. On the way back, Dad used those $3 to buy 3 lollipops and a few sausages. Carrie knows how to stand up for Dad now. Time flew and 9th grade arrived. The teacher found several practice exams. I got these county mock exams for everyone to try. We won't waste class time. Barely anyone went to him for copies. Carrie, after you're done, let me check. I'll review your mistakes. I pretty much hung out in the teacher's office after school. My birth mom shamelessly badmouthed me everywhere. Does Becky really think she'll amount to anything? Dreaming like a fool. I heard she's cozying up to that teacher. Probably in love. TSK, just pitiful. She's bound to end up preggo. These words spread to my teacher. I felt really sorry. Carrie, this is why I won't stay teaching in this village. Doesn't matter, truth will prevail. Forget about it, just focus on the exam prep. Time felt like water squeezed from a sponge, bit by bit. To others, these exams might not matter, but for me, it's a critical fork in the road. On exam day, the cicadas outside droned on tirelessly. I scribbled away, loving the sound of the pen scratching the paper. Then came the long wait. I locked myself in, couldn't focus on anything. The village gossip speculated Carrie must have flopped. She hasn't stepped out. My birth mom sneered, yeah, like she can pass. If she does, pigs can fly. The teacher's call came through the village's little store. The store owner rushed to me. Carrie, you got into the top school. Teacher, did I really pass? The phone crackled with static. Carrie, you did. Only 3 made it. And you're first 78th in the county. I was blown away. County school's quality blew ours out of the water. Carrie, come get the notice on Monday. Carrie, is Carrie there? Got it, teacher. I replied, rushing to Dad's stone factory, losing my flip-flops a few times on the way. My face felt wet, unsure if it was sweat or tears. Dad was loading stones onto a trailer. I yelled, Dad, I got into the top school. He put down the shovel, as if unsurprised, wiped his sweat. My Carrie is amazing. Dad proudly handed out cigarettes to co-workers. Let's go home early today, my girl did it. I hopped on Dad's bicycle catching whispers. If Becky makes it big, she won't care for him. Girls don't need school, just marry off. Old Lou, you're setting this up for your son, aren't you? Laughter followed. Dad paused, didn't look back, pedaled ahead forcefully. I couldn't understand. Their hands held the cigarettes Dad offered, yet their words cut deep. I murmured to myself, Dad, I'll always care for you. Dad, someday I'll take you and Mom to see the big city. He nodded vigorously. The sunset-drenched path was tough to tread. Our shadows stretched long and thin. I'd tread this path countless times later. Time flew by. That fragile twilight glow remains the brightest dawn of my life. For high school, I needed to go to the county, but didn't even have decent clothes, let alone tuition and travel fare. Added up, it was over $1,600. Dad didn't express any worries, yet a pack of dry tobacco turned his hair gray. Learning of the news, my birth mom's family holed up at Grandma's, dodging us in fear of money requests. Dad's estranged brother house was out of the question. Neighbors could only lend $10 or so. A blown bulb wasn't replaced for ages. Mike was growing fast, and he needed clothes, couldn't rely on hand-me-downs from me anymore. We were dirt poor. A saying like sell the pots and pans felt almost comical. Mom sat by the doorstep, pointing to the half-grown pig they raised for 6 months. Sell the pig. We don't need meat. Let Carrie go to school. Dad eventually got a salary advance and sold the half-grown pig. They barely scraped together the tuition. Handing me the cash, Dad said, Carrie, focus on studying. Don't worry about anything else. I felt the weight of it all, packing up everything we owned, vowing to myself all I could. To work hard. To work even harder. To be worthy of Mom and Dad's sacrifices. On registration day, Dad took me to the town. I rode a bus alone to the county. Moon, take care of yourself out there. Eat well, don't worry about us. Dad comes to see you whenever he's free. He never talked much, but now he handed me 2 sausages. Take them for the road. Mike doesn't even have these. The car started, leaving dust everywhere, swallowing Dad up in it. I looked at the barren land and his fading silhouette, tears hitting the ground hard. High school was tougher than I thought. Poverty, low self-esteem, and pressure took my breath away. Some kids didn't even need the lessons to top the class. Some had already finished sophomore year material. Some focused on special skills since freshman year. They had it easy. Meanwhile, I was still stuck in middle school mode, just learning what was in the books. Everyone went home on weekends. I hid in the bathroom during checks, sneaking back to the dorm after they were done. With the lights out, I'd use a flashlight and do practice questions page by page. Stray cats outside were creepy at night. The winter chill was bone deep. I had to wrap myself with a blanket. My meals were just 2 big cold buns and water for 2 days. Wendy's mom caught me gnawing on a bun a few times when she visited. She brought a big bag of milk and bread for me next time. She didn't embarrass me. We can't finish it at home, help Wendy out. With a full belly, weekends didn't feel so bad. My grades hit rock bottom by the final exams. I was ranked 195th. Our whole class barely had 500 kids. Only about 100 made it to college every year. I dropped over 100 places since the entrance test. I started to doubt myself. How could I dream of being gold when I was just a regular piece of sand? I couldn't even keep up with most people. Why not just give up and go with the flow? When Dad asked about my grades on his visits, I was too ashamed to answer. Not bad, I can keep up. Dad's stone quarry closed down. Illegal mining was against the law, and regulations got stricter. He found work in an orchard collecting fruit, selling it in town just to get by. Dad took me to a shop for a bowl of noodles. He pulled out some cold buns. Your mom made these. Mom can make buns now. I was surprised and happy. Let me try some. Dad tried to dodge, but I grabbed it and took a bite. It was full of cabbage, no meat at all. I pushed half my noodles over to him. Dad, have some noodles. I eat them a lot at school. I just miss home food. Dad's hair was getting whiter. His camo shoes were ones we bought back in middle school. It takes half a month's fruit sale earnings to cover my living costs. If I stayed lost in my worries, I'd see the end of my life already. Maybe find a decent husband, get a good dowry, be a wife and mother, drifting with the current. Is this why I've spent over 10 years studying? To repay my parents like this? For over a year of high school, I'd never felt as clear-headed as that moment. I couldn't keep going like this. Sophomore year meant choosing subject tracks. The country was booming, researchers were in demand. Schools pushed science over the arts. I hesitated. Most of my lost points were in science. If I dropped it, my scores would rise. But everyone said science graduates got better jobs and more money. My teacher, a chemistry teacher, suggested everyone choose science. He said art students had no future. My mind was torn. The teacher found me, offering some books and supplies. I saw him through the iron gates. Carrie, I moved to the county's experimental high school. It's been a month. I was thrilled for him. That's awesome, congrats teacher. He looked confident, so different from the village days. Joy changes a man. I shared my struggle with him. Carrie, first choose a field that suits you. Don't worry about future jobs or money now. You need to survive first. His words were eye-opening. My goal was to enter university. Ignoring my strengths would be a mistake. He continued, but if you think arts is easier, drop that idea. Arts aren't easy, despite what others say. Learning is never easy. Once you slack, it's over. Deciding brought relief. I dropped some science courses, spent most of my time on memorizing and more exercises. At 5 a.m., I'd grab hot water to warm my hands while reciting. By the time others arrived at 6:30, I'd already finished a practice test. In bed, I'd read by flashlight late into the night. My pockets were always filled with vocabulary cards. By the end of sophomore year, I jumped to being ranked 85th, almost 100 spots up. When summer break came, Dad asked about my grades. I could finally answer with pride. Hearing it, my birth father was calm. No doubt she's a Lou. Good genes. Becky makes it to college, then our little one must go to a prestigious school. Someone joked. Becky won't care. You didn't take care of her. She'll care. No child doesn't recognize their dad. Yeah, right, like heck I do. Before summer break, I got a stack of study materials from graduating seniors. Dad loaded it all on a tricycle, and I pushed behind. Dad, is it heavy? Nope, lighter than a cart of apples. He said it so easily. He was used to this. A cart of apples weighed much more. Turns out, life's hardships outweigh study struggles. During summer, kids my age worked plowing, mowing, harvesting. Dad never made me work. Now he took Mom and my brother with him. Mom got real skilled, even helped in the fields. People joked. That daughter sure has it easy, leaving her brother to work like a mule. Mike stepped in and defended them. My sister has important things to do, and besides, I'm stronger than her. I felt so ashamed, so I just studied day and night. We didn't have any fans at home, and during the hottest days of summer, there wasn't a hint of breeze. Before long, I was drenched in sweat, drew water from the well, poured it over my head, and kept on studying. In no time, it was the second semester of my senior year. My rank hovered around the top 50 in my grade. No matter how hard I tried, it was tough to move up. There were only 123 days left before the college entrance exam. The big battle was on the horizon, and everyone was doing their own thing to prep. Some had private tutors for one-on-one sessions. Some were already guaranteed a spot. Some were looking into special admission options through educational institutions. Every day, Some classmates left classes for their special skills practice. I looked at the many empty seats, feeling something indescribable. Wendy had also chosen the liberal arts track and was in my class. She had decided to focus on dance as her specialty. In addition to her weekly dance classes, her mom also hired a tutor for her. Apparently, it costs $100 an hour. Wendy complained to me, "Do you know how annoying that teacher is? Talks so slowly. It's like something that would put a dog to sleep." My mom still believes in him. Says he's got 15 years of experience with graduating classes. When she saw the envy in my eyes, she added, "Carrie, that's not how I meant it." "No worries, Wendy, you've got this." I really wasn't bothered. I admired Wendy, but I never envied her. I hoped she'd always be her mom's little princess. The next time Wendy saw me, she handed me a recorder. "Here, I've recorded everything that teacher said, so you can listen to it as much as you need." Not many people would be so generous when everyone else was worried about gaining any advantage. I was overwhelmed with gratitude, though words seemed too light. All right, no need for drama, I can't handle that. It's expensive, owe me a meal." I replayed the recordings over and over. Truth is, the teacher was really good. He made even the most complicated concepts clear. I compiled things I didn't understand, and Wendy would have her tutor explain them over the weekend. Thanks to that recorder, I went over the tough stuff until it completely made sense. Bit by bit I absorbed, understood, and mastered it. I was like a young wheat plant in the field, growing taller after every rainfall. The college entrance exams arrived as scheduled. After the exams, everyone let loose. I took a long deep breath, saying farewell to high school life. My name still lingered on the honor board in the hallway. The climbing stone at the school gate stood tall, having seen off countless students. Swallows had nested at the classroom door at some point. These things I'd never noticed, always rushing forward. On the day the results came out, there was a fair in our village. Every household set up tables with offerings. Dad and I went to the village chief's house to check my results. The system was busy. The web page kept refreshing but wouldn't load. Even the men outside drinking and playing cards quieted down. My heart was in my throat. Language 128, Mathematics 120, English 125, Comprehensive 222. Total score, 595. That year, the liberal arts benchmark for a first-rate university was 536. Dad's hands trembled as he patted my shoulder firmly. The village chief rarely invited Dad to stay for a meal. Dad's not the sociable type, and wasn't comfortable in those situations. But when he walked out, his back was straighter than ever. I applied to a prestigious local university, and based on advice from both my teachers and Wendy's mom, I chose to study law. In a tough place full of challenges, people may not understand or accept the law, yet they still respect it. My biological mother heard the news and came by with my biological father, bringing a chicken. I always believed Carrie could make it. When you make it big, remember to help your brother. Carrie's birthday is coming, this chicken's to strengthen you. I had no idea how she could say these things so shamelessly. You must be mistaken. My birthday isn't on May 6th. I gave birth to you, trust me, I know. You're wrong, it's actually October 9th. My biological mom smirked a little. Of course, she remembered that day when I almost froze on the mountain. Mom suddenly picked up a stone and threw it at her, hitting her on the forehead. Biological dad started yelling in anger. "You crazy woman, I'm gonna get you." Mom seemed triggered, her eyes red, like a protective hen waving a shovel wildly. Mike came back just then, standing in front of Mom. "Take your stuff and leave. Set foot here again, and I'll break your legs." He grabbed my biological father, his punches landing squarely on his stomach. The little scrawny monkey I once protected had grown into a man. Both my biological parents fled, hurling curses as they went. "Carrie, you ungrateful brat, you'll get what's coming." I combed Mom's hair and comforted her like a child. "Rest easy, Mom. I'm not going anywhere. Carrie is always Mom's daughter. Just wait. I'll take Mom to the doctor, ride a train, see skyscrapers." Mom gradually calmed down and smiled. During dinner, Mike mentioned that he wanted to drop out of school. He was almost done with middle school, but his grades weren't great. Both Dad and Mom felt that since he wasn't suited for studying, There was no point wasting money. With my college tuition already stretching us thin, he wanted to do something to help. I firmly said no. There are student loans available now, and I'll ask the teachers about the application process. And besides, I can work part-time in college, so no worries about my living expenses. Mike's only in 8th grade, he should finish middle school. If it doesn't work out, he can learn a trade. When the acceptance letter arrived, I was helping Dad with the wheat harvest. Wearing a headscarf, wheat chaff flying everywhere, the mailman shouted my name 3 times. "Who's Carrie?" I took the letter, saw the disbelief on his face as he gave me a thumbs up. He pulled out a camera and snapped a photo of me. "Auntie's doing great." That photo ended up in our local newspaper. Turned out this guy was the postmaster. Then the college dean contacted me, saying the school could help me apply for student loans. They also offered some living subsidies to ensure I could enroll smoothly. This was the best news we could imagine. When leaving home, Mom collected half an acre of cotton to make me a thick new quilt. The stitches resembled centipedes. It was my most valuable possession. I was on the road to learning again, leaving my hometown far behind. My family saw me off again and again. Dad's a man of few words, Mom struggles with hers, but their silent love lifted me up. I carried their love with me, venturing toward wide open skies. Let time slow down a bit. Wait for me to grow up before Mom and Dad grow old. I want to be their wings, their eyes, their support. College life was incredibly busy. I darted between classrooms on campus and juggled several part-time jobs off campus. I could finally afford to eat well, stand tall, and stop asking my family for money. The city was full of opportunities. Fast food joints, supermarkets, store openings, work a few hours and I could fill my belly. There were also guys showing interest. I turned them all down. I was too busy, too poor. Besides my youth, I had nothing else to offer. I didn't want that. Gradually, everyone knew. I preferred making money over romance. Wendy got into her dream school in Beijing. Sometimes we'd talk on the phone. I'd let it ring 3 times before she'd hang up and call me back. "You're so broke, let me save you some phone bill." "Carrie, if it weren't for your influence in high school, I might not have made it here." Her words always hit the right notes, making you comfortable. Truly wealthy people, they shine but don't blind. They're confident yet modest. When they shine, they never extinguish others' lights. "Wendy, I still owe you a meal." "Sure, treat me to something nice when you make money." Mike, after finishing middle school, went to a vocational school for auto repair. 3 popular trades for poor families: auto repair, hairstyling, cooking. Mike didn't have a knack for studying, but he's quick-witted and nimble. Learning a skill could secure his future. At that time, cars weren't common. People mocked him. There aren't many who drive. Learning to fix cars will starve you. His family must be rolling in cash, sending one to college without knowing their limits. If he doesn't have the potential, don't waste money. As a grown man, he should be thinking about earning money for a wife instead of relying on his parents. Mike was so frustrated he called to vent. "Sis, maybe I should quit." "You can't quit. Listen to me. If the tuition's short, I'll help." The orchard boss where Dad worked bought another plot and entrusted the old orchard to Dad. No more endless running around selling fruit. With savings from part-time jobs, I installed a landline at home. Even though cell phones were widespread, Dad found them inconvenient. Only had signal in certain spots, not very practical. As graduation approached, I was torn between civil service exams and grad school. A senior, later my boyfriend Henry, wisely analyzed it for me. If you want to change your fate and have job security, go for civil service. Law graduates have a slight advantage there. If you're after higher earnings, go to grad school. It'll be advantageous in top law firms. I pondered and chose to prepare for grad school. I understood his intention, but had nothing to return. I found a clerical job at a law firm, attending cases and gearing up for the bar exam. After graduating, Mike got assigned to an auto repair shop. Every day he lay beneath cars, working till he was covered in grime. But he wasn't afraid of hard work and didn't moonlight outside his job. Clients and supervisors praised him endlessly. I graduated from grad school and scored an offer at a renowned law firm. One morning, the office door swung open. I saw the familiar face of my birth mother. She looked much older, not sure how she found her way to me, standing lost outside the office. Carrie, help your brother, he's obsessed with online games. I don't know what to do. Don't blame me for being harsh. I had no choice back then. Wendy, who couldn't stand it anymore, spoke up. Lady, you abandoned Carrie, and now you have the nerve to come here? Have you no shame? That's considered child abandonment, you know? It's a good thing Carrie didn't sue. Her cases start at 4 figures. My birth mother's face turned red and pale. I really wanted to give Wendy a thumbs up. In 3 sentences, she dismissed her for me. Of course I wouldn't sue them. Treating people like Wendy said is more effective. Let them live with guilt. Regret forever. Always on edge. Always scared to trouble dad and mom. It's far more torturous than a lawsuit. During the holiday, Mike bought a used car and drove it home. Everyone was green with envy. Besides delivery trucks, no one had seen a car with 4 wheels in the village. Mike's really doing well. Can you take me for a spin? Does the car make you dizzy? Does it run like a train? Mike took mom and dad to the town market, shopping for New Year goods. We bought carp, pork, candy, roasted chicken, and pork knuckles. Got new clothes for mom and dad too. We even bought couplets and 2 big red lanterns. Dad opened the window, chatting with everyone passing by. I sat in the back seat, having never seen them so proud. Mike, did you get this car legally? Sis, you're such a cop. What, you think I stole it? One of my clients got a new car and left this old one at the shop, so I bought it. The New Year's Eve dinner was livelier than ever. While the fireworks were going off that night, Henry called. Carrie, Happy New Year. You too, Happy New Year. I was waving a sparkler around with joy. Carrie, will you be my girlfriend? You're really special. Let me protect you. I arranged for your aunt's treatment at a hospital in Beijing. We can go right after New Year's. I've got the tickets ready. And you should bring Uncle too. I covered my mouth to stop myself from crying. Turns out he understood everything. When living together, you rely on the basics. I've never hidden my past, but few have accepted it as openly as he has. It's okay if you say no, we can just stay friends. I said yes. I heard him cheer as the first firecracker of the new year went off. After New Year's, I took my parents to Beijing. The renowned specialists were amazed, saying Mom's survival was nothing short of a medical miracle. The bruise from the accident on Mom's head had turned into a clot, pressing on her nerves. If it spread and blocked a blood vessel, it could be life-threatening. The doctor prescribed some meds, and will monitor it going forward. Dad wants to renovate the house. Back then, after I hit Aunt Mary's son, they held a grudge. In my senior year, when Mary's family was rebuilding, they took up half an acre of our backyard. Dad couldn't let it go and confronted them, only to be beaten by old Mary. I found out all of this later. I pooled together my savings over the years, a good $150,000. Dad, go ahead and build a 2-story house. Aunt Mary complained to the village heads, saying it blocked her sunlight. The village chief let her rant for a while, and then slowly said, Auntie, chill. Remember, you took their land and didn't get sued. Consider yourself lucky. In my first working year, I paid to pave the muddy village road. So, the village leaders would defer to Dad whenever they saw him. Abusing power isn't good, but sometimes it's very satisfying. We tore down the old mud house and put the project out to tender. I watched my youth get demolished bit by bit. All the pain, humiliation, hurts, and hardships were buried. But the love? That stayed forever. A brand new small villa soon rose up. Dad would check on the orchard daily, spraying bugs and bagging fruits. Everyone told him to retire, but he just couldn't be idle. Mom became the kindest old lady in the village. She'd never join the other aunties gossiping, because she had no clue what they were talking about. A bunch of kids always swarmed around her, hoping for candies from her pockets. Mike took over his own repair shop, focusing solely on his business without any interest in dating. When I officially introduced Henry to my family, he secretly gifted Dad an electric tricycle. Dad was sold right then and there. My parents started getting chatty, spending hours on the phone venting their thoughts to me. I used to wish time would slow down, so I'd grow up and repay their love. Now I'm greedier. May time crawl, so I can cherish them into their old age. To those I love, take care, all of you. The end.